Another question that we get a lot during these town halls is about federal lands in Utah. We've got a question from Shauna, again in Kanab, about this issue. Let's see if we can get Shauna on the line. Hello, Shauna?
Hi.
Hi, you're on with Senator
Shauna.
Lee.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, Shauna.
I am truly happy about a couple of things. One thing is the letter to Iran. I give you guys kudos for standing up. I'm proud to know you, true-blooded American, blue-blooded American. Anyway, I have a quick question. On the land, are we making any headway on getting the federal lands back to the western states, as per se of the Constitution?
Okay, Shauna. The short answer to your question is we are making headway, yes. Not as quickly as I would like, but I'm doing everything I can, first and foremost, to educate my colleagues about federal land, about what it's like to be from a federal public land state. As obvious as it is to us in Utah, to those of us who have grown up in a state where 2/3 of the land is owned by the federal government, and where there are some counties like yours, like Kane County, where the federal government owns more than 90% of the land, to a lot of people, these things are not obvious. And so I've been trying to make the case to my colleagues that we ought to be concerned about this. And if, as many insist, if the entire country is said to benefit from federal land ownership, then the entire country also ought to share in the burdens associated with it. Unfortunately, counties like yours, and counties like most of those counties throughout our state, lose out on a lot of revenue that they would otherwise have access to, and lose out on a lot of economic development that would otherwise occur within our state and its 29 counties. And so I've been doing everything I can to bring about reforms through legislation designed to reform, for example, the Endangered Species Act, the BLM's leasing programs, and to introduce legislation requiring the disposal of federal public lands, particularly those that have been deemed suitable for sale, those that have been deemed excess. I've also been working on proposals to shore up the PILT program, the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program that the federal government uses ostensibly to offset the financial burdens carried by public land states, particularly taxing authorities, in our state, counties, that can't collect property taxes on federal public land. In time, what I'd like to do is to put in place legislation that would require Congress to pay a rough equivalent of the tax revenue that's lost by the taxing authorities within public land states. I think once that happens, we'll be in a much better position to focus on the enormous burdens imposed on public land states by this widespread federal land ownership. I also think it's important for us to continue to focus, as I've been focusing, on the fact that our Statehood Enabling Act, like the Statehood Enabling Act of basically every state that's been admitted into the Union since the Constitution was ratified, always contemplated from the outset that federal public land within our state, nearly all of it, would eventually be sold. Now, we're not talking here about selling national parks. We're not talking here about selling declared wilderness or national recreation areas. But we are talking about garden variety BLM land, land that's just there, that the federal government owns. I personally don't see why the federal government ought to continue owning all of that land in perpetuity and not having to pay property taxes on it to the host state and to the taxing jurisdictions within that state.